My name is Claire Bennett, and the moment my family tried to destroy me came just before Thanksgiving dinner, while my mother was carrying the turkey into the dining room. My sister Natalie stood beside the table with my phone in her hand. Her face had gone white. Everyone was staring at her, but she was staring at me. Then she read the message aloud. Claire, the transfer is complete. Your parents still believe the lake house belongs to them. Call me when you are ready to sell. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. My father looked at me as if I were a stranger. My mother almost dropped the turkey. My brother Eric pushed back his chair. His wife, Melissa, smiled into her wine glass. And Natalie said the words that ended the life I had known. You stole Mom and Dad's house. I wish I could say I defended myself immediately. I wish I could say I understood what was happening. But I had never seen that message before, and the number was not saved in my phone. I only knew one thing. Someone at that table had planned this. And before the night was over, I intended to learn who. Parto and Tempychair. Thanksgiving had always mattered to my mother. Even after my older brother moved to Chicago, and my sister married a dentist in Columbus, Mom insisted we return to our hometown of Ashford, Ohio, every November. She lived for the familiar details. The cinnamon candles. The football game playing too loudly in the living room. My father pretending to carve the turkey, while Mom quietly corrected everything he did. That year, I arrived early. I was 38, divorced, and working as a forensic accountant in Cleveland. Most people heard the word accountant and pictured spreadsheets. My real job was finding lies hidden inside numbers. I had spent 12 years tracing missing money through businesses, divorces, estates, and charities. I knew that honest numbers usually formed a pattern. Stolen money created a wound. I just never expected to find that wound inside my own family. My parents' house looked smaller than I remembered. The white paint was peeling near the gutters, and the porch steps leaned slightly to the left. Dad had promised to repair them in the spring, but he was 71 now. Promises took longer at that age. Mom opened the door before I knocked. You're too thin, she said. Hello to you too. She hugged me, then held me at arm's length. You look tired. That is because I am too thin. She laughed, but her eyes did not. There was a stack of unopened mail on the hall table. A red notice from a utility company was half hidden beneath a grocery advertisement. Everything okay? I asked. Mom swept the mail into a drawer. Of course. Your father forgets things. A dad had never forgotten a bill in his life. Before retiring, he had managed the local hardware store for 35 years. He kept receipts in labeled envelopes. He balanced his checkbook every Sunday night. I wanted to ask more, but the front door opened behind me. Natalie entered with a pie and a complaint. Why is Eric's truck blocking half the driveway? Natalie was 2 years younger than me. She had Mom's brown eyes and Dad's talent for turning worry into anger. We had once been close, but adulthood had placed a careful distance between us. Her husband, Ben, followed with their coats. He greeted me politely, then disappeared into the living room. Eric and Melissa arrived together from the kitchen. Eric kissed my cheek. Melissa did not. She looked perfect as usual. Cream sweater, gold earrings, dark hair falling over one shoulder. Melissa had always possessed the strange ability to appear calm whenever everyone else felt uncomfortable. Claire, she said, still saving corporations from their own greed. Mostly saving ordinary people from greedy corporations. How heroic. Eric changed the subject. My brother had been the golden child since the day he was born. He was charming, athletic, and good at making people feel chosen. 5 years earlier, he and Melissa had opened an upscale home renovation company called Hartwell Living. Their social media pages showed marble kitchens, restored farmhouses, and smiling clients holding champagne. My father had invested part of his retirement savings in the company. At the time, I warned him to ask for proper financial statements. Eric heard about my warning and stopped speaking to me for 4 months. That afternoon, he acted as though nothing had happened. "I need your opinion on something after dinner," he said. "Business. Family." The way he said it made my skin tighten. At 4:30, Mom asked me to take a photograph of everyone around the table. There were 6 chairs and 7 people, so Dad brought in an old wooden chair from his office. When he lifted it, a blue folder fell from beneath a stack of newspapers. Eric moved faster than I did. He picked up the folder and carried it into the office. "What was that?" I asked. "Insurance papers." "Why are you handling Dad's insurance papers?" His smile remained, but something behind it changed. "Because I help our parents when you are too busy to come home." It was a cruel answer, because it contained a small piece of truth. I called Mom every Sunday, but Eric lived nearby. He took Dad to medical appointments. He fixed the sink. He brought groceries. I let the comment pass. That was my first mistake. My second mistake was leaving my phone on the kitchen counter while I helped Mom carry food. We sat down at 5:15. Dad said grace. Mom began serving the stuffing. Then my phone rang in the kitchen. Natalie stood up. "I'll get it," she returned, holding my phone. A message was visible on the locked screen. At first, she looked confused. Then she looked horrified. She read it aloud. "Claire, the transfer is complete. Your parents still believe the lake house belongs to them. Call me when you are ready to sell." The sender was listed as M. Lawson. Dad lowered his fork. "What transfer?" "I don't know," I said. Natalie shoved the phone toward me. "It is on your phone." I opened the message. There was no earlier conversation, only that single text. "Anyone can send a message," I said. Melissa sighed softly. "Claire, please don't insult us." I turned toward her. "I was not speaking to you." Eric rose from his chair. "Dad, get the lake house deed." My parents owned a small cabin on Lake Erie. It was not luxurious, but it had belonged to my grandmother. Mom wanted it kept in the family. Dad went to his office. He returned several minutes later without the blue folder. "It's gone," he said. Mom pressed both hands against the table. "Claire, tell me this is a mistake." "It is a mistake." "Then explain it." "I cannot explain a message I did not send." Eric walked around the table and held out his hand. "Give me the phone." "No." "If you are innocent, give me the phone." That sentence told me more than the message did. Innocent people ask questions. People controlling a story demand evidence before you understand what it means. I placed the phone in my pocket. "Who knew I would leave it in the kitchen?" I asked. No one answered. I looked at each face. Dad appeared wounded. Mom looked frightened. Natalie was furious. Ben stared at his plate. Eric's jaw was tight. Melissa was smiling. It was only a tiny smile. It vanished quickly, but I saw it. I picked up my coat. Mom started crying. "You are leaving." "For tonight." Eric blocked the doorway. "You are not walking away with evidence." "Move." "You stole from our parents." I leaned close enough that only he could hear me. "If you believe that, call the police." His eyes flickered. Then he stepped aside. That was the moment I knew the message was not meant to begin an investigation. It was meant to end one before it started. Part TWO. I drove to a motel outside town and locked the door behind me. Then I examined my phone. The text from M. Lawson had arrived at 5:17 p.m. The number used a Columbus area code. A reverse search revealed nothing. I called it. The number was already disconnected. Next, I logged into the county property database. The lake house was still listed under my parents' names. No transfer had been recorded. That should have relieved me. It did not. Someone had selected a lie that could be disproved within minutes. That meant the lie itself was not the true weapon. The reaction was, they wanted my parents frightened. They wanted my siblings angry. Most of all, they wanted everyone watching me instead of something else. I called Dad. Eric answered. Why do you have Dad's phone? He does not want to speak to you. The county record shows no transfer. Silence. Then Eric said, records take time to update. Not those records. You always think you are the smartest person in the room. No, I think you are hiding the blue folder. He hung up. I sat on the edge of the motel bed and replayed the day. The overdue notice in the drawer. Eric taking the folder. Dad forgetting a bill. Melissa smiling after the message. Then I remembered what Eric had said before dinner. I need your opinion on something. Family. He had expected the confrontation. At 6 the next morning, I called the bank where my parents had kept their accounts for decades. The bank could not disclose information without authorization. I expected that. So I called Mom. She answered after 9 rings. I did not steal the lake house, I said. I want to believe you. Then help me prove it. Meet me at the bank. Your brother said. Do you trust Eric more than you trust the public property record? She became quiet. What property record? That told me Eric had not shown it to her. Mom met me at 10. Dad came with her, but Eric drove them. He remained in the parking lot. Inside. Mom authorized the bank manager to discuss the accounts with me. The manager printed 3 months of statements. Dad had always maintained 2 accounts. A checking account and a savings account. The statements showed 4. There was a home, equity line of credit with a balance of $186,000. There was also a business account linked to Hartwell Living. My father gripped the edge of the desk. I never borrowed that money. The manager's face became careful. The application was completed electronically 18 months ago. Who signed it? I asked. She turned the screen slightly away. The authorization bears Mr. Bennett's digital signature. Dad shook his head. I do not have a digital signature. I asked for the transfer history. The borrowed money had moved in 6 payments to Hartwell Living. Every transaction had been approved through Dad's online banking account. Dad did not use online banking. Mom began to cry. Eric helped us set it up. She whispered. The bank manager stopped speaking. She excused herself and returned with a fraud specialist. We spent 2 hours signing forms and freezing accounts. When we left, Eric was gone. He had abandoned my parents in the parking lot. On the drive home, Dad said almost nothing. Mom kept repeating that Eric must have made a mistake. $186,000 is not a mistake, I said. He would not steal from us. Then why did he leave? Mom had no answer. At the house, the blue folder was back on Dad's desk. Inside were insurance papers, exactly as Eric had claimed. But the folder was too clean. Every document was arranged perfectly. Dad's office was messy. Nothing in it had been arranged perfectly since 1998. I removed the papers one by one. At the bottom was an indentation on the cardboard. Someone had written on a document while it rested inside the folder. I took a soft pencil from Dad's drawer and rubbed it lightly across the surface. Numbers appeared. 6 amounts. They matched the transfers from the home equity account. Below them were 2 initials, E.B. and Enel Eric Bennett, M. Lawson. The name from the message on my phone. Mom sank into Dad's chair. Who is Lawson? She asked. I did not know yet, but I knew how I would find out. Tirasar Tichi Wamanas Amana the Tirat, Caught I began with Hartwell Living. The company's website listed 12 completed projects and 5 current ones. The photographs looked impressive, but photographs can lie as easily as people. I searched county permit records. 4 of the 12 completed projects had never received final approval. 2 addresses did not exist. 1 house belonged to Melissa's aunt and had not been renovated in 20 years. Then I checked court filings. 3 former clients had sued Hartwell Living for unfinished work. Each case had been settled quietly. The company was not successful. It was collapsing. I called my friend Aisha Grant, an attorney who handled financial fraud cases. I gave her the facts, not my theories. "Do not confront them," she said. "Preserve everything. Your parents need independent counsel, and the bank needs time." Someone framed me. Then that person expects you to panic. Disappoint them. Aisha arranged for a local attorney to represent Mom and Dad. I returned to Cleveland, but continued investigating after work. The number that texted me was disconnected, but the carrier records could eventually identify its purchaser. I did not want to wait. I searched the name Lawson alongside Hartwell Living. On the 4th page of results, I found a charity gala photograph from 2 years earlier. Eric and Melissa stood beside a woman in a red coat. The caption identified her as Marissa Lawson, regional lending consultant for Great Lake Community Bank. The same bank that had approved my parents' home equity loan. I searched Marissa's professional history. She had left the bank 9 months earlier. Her license had expired. Her social media accounts had disappeared, but people rarely vanish completely. Her mother's obituary mentioned a sister who owned a bakery in Columbus. I called the bakery and asked whether Marissa was available to discuss a corporate holiday order. The woman who answered said, "Marissa does not work here anymore." The word "anymore" mattered. I drove to Columbus the next Saturday. The bakery was narrow and warm, with yellow walls and glass cases filled with pastries. A woman behind the counter looked enough like Marissa to be her sister. I ordered coffee and waited until the shop emptied. Then I placed the gala photograph on the counter. "I need to find her." The woman's expression closed. "I cannot help you. My elderly parents may lose their home because of a loan she approved." Her eyes moved toward the kitchen door. "Please leave." I turned to go. Then a voice behind me said, "Wait." Marissa Lawson stepped from the kitchen. She was thinner than in the photograph. Her hair was shorter, and fear had sharpened her face. We sat in my car because she did not want her sister involved. I showed her the message. She covered her mouth. "I did not send that." "But you know Eric Bennett." "Wes, you approved the loan." She looked through the windshield for a long time. "Eric told me his father had early dementia. He said the family needed money to move him into care. He had power of attorney documents. Those documents were false. I know that now." "Why did you leave the bank?" Her hands began shaking. "Because Melissa threatened me." That answer surprised me. Until then, I had assumed Eric was directing everything. Melissa was cold, but Eric had access to my parents. Eric had handled their passwords. Eric's initials were in the folder. Marissa told me a different story. She had met Melissa at the charity gala. 6 months later, Melissa asked for advice about a loan for Hartwell Living. The company had terrible credit and too much debt. Marissa refused. Then Melissa introduced her to Eric's plan. They would borrow against my parents' house, using a forged power of attorney. Marissa would process the application. In return, she would receive $20,000. "Why did you agree?" I asked. Tears filled her eyes. "My son needed surgery. Insurance denied part of it. I told myself Eric's father had agreed. I told myself it was only paperwork." And afterward, they stopped making payments. The bank began an internal review. Melissa said she had copies of messages that would make it look like I created the entire scheme. She told me to resign and disappear. Do you have evidence? Marissa unlocked her phone. She had saved photographs of the forged documents, emails from a private account, and an audio recording. In the recording, Melissa's voice was calm. If anyone asks, Claire arranged it. She works in finance. She is divorced, and she wants the lake property. People will believe motive before they believe facts. My chest went cold. The false Thanksgiving message had not been created in a moment of panic. Melissa had planned to blame me from the beginning. Why send the message now? I asked. Marissa looked confused. Maybe because the loan defaults next month. If the loan defaulted, the bank could begin foreclosure proceedings against my parents' main home. The lake house was a distraction. While everyone argued about a property that had never been transferred, Mom and Dad were weeks away from losing the house where they had lived for 42 years. I asked Marissa to speak with Aisha. She refused at first. Then I played the recording again. Melissa already chose you as the first person to sacrifice, I said. I am the second. Do you think she will stop there? Marissa agreed. As I drove home, Natalie called me. She had not spoken to me since Thanksgiving. Her voice was small. Claire, I found something in Ben's email. What? A contract with Hartwell Living. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. What kind of contract? Ben invested $80,000 in Eric's company. He used our home as security. I pulled onto the shoulder. Natalie began sobbing. Claire, he never told me. That was when I understood the full design. My parents were not the only victims. Eric and Melissa had borrowed against every person in the family who trusted them. And if Hartwell Living failed, all of us were meant to fall together. Perfiuar, tias konskiviangi revenge is often imagined as a loud thing, a public accusation, a slap across a face, a person screaming while the truth destroys a room. Real revenge is quieter. It is patience when someone expects rage. It is a copy saved in 3 places. It is allowing a liar to keep talking until the lie becomes a cage. For 6 weeks, I acted defeated. I stopped arguing with Eric. I let him believe Mom and Dad still doubted me. Natalie pretended she had forgiven Ben and knew nothing about his investment. Meanwhile, Aisha built the case. The bank's fraud team confirmed that the loan application came from an internet address assigned to Hartwell Living's office. The digital signature had been copied from an old tax document. The false power of attorney carried a notary stamp belonging to Melissa's cousin, whose license had expired before the stated date. The phone carrier identified the Thanksgiving number. It was a prepaid phone purchased with Hartwell Living's business debit card. Security footage from a convenience store showed Melissa buying it. Marissa gave a recorded statement and surrendered her evidence. In exchange for cooperation, prosecutors agreed to consider a reduced charge. I did not like that agreement. But justice and purity are different things. Sometimes you need a guilty person to expose someone guiltier. Then came the twist none of us expected. Eric contacted me. He asked to meet at a diner outside Ashford. He arrived wearing a baseball cap and looked as though he had not slept in days. Melissa is leaving me, he said. That is not my problem. She emptied our accounts. Also not my problem. He stared at his coffee. She made me do it. I almost laughed. Did she make you steal Dad's password? You don't understand. Did she make you forge his signature? The company was going to fail. Did she make you leave Mom and Dad at the bank? His face twisted. I panicked. No, Eric. You made a choice. Then you made another choice. Then you made 100 more. He leaned across the table. I can help you prove Melissa planned it. Why would I need your help? For the first time, real fear entered his eyes. He had assumed I was investigating. He did not know how much we already had. Because she kept records. He whispered. She has a second laptop. There are contracts, account lists, everything. We're a storage unit outside Toledo. Why are you telling me? Because my name is on the documents, and hers is not. There it was. Eric had not come to save the family. He had come to save himself. I looked at the brother I had defended in school. The brother who had carried me home after I broke my ankle. The brother whose first business card I had framed as a joke. I searched for the person I once loved. He was still there somewhere. But love does not erase responsibility. Sometimes love makes responsibility necessary. I will tell Aisha about the unit, I said. Will you help me? I am helping you. Hope crossed his face. I finished the sentence. I am giving you one chance to tell the complete truth before someone else tells it for you. He sat back. You set me up. No, you called me. The meeting had been recorded with my attorney's knowledge and within the law. Eric left through the back door. 2 days later, investigators searched the storage unit. The second laptop contained more than family records. Melissa and Eric had created false invoices for non-existent renovations. They used deposits from new clients to finish old projects. When that money ran out, they borrowed against properties belonging to relatives and older clients. The total loss was more than $1 million. But the laptop held one final surprise. Melissa had purchased airline tickets to Costa Rica under her maiden name. Her flight left on December 23rd. She planned to disappear before Christmas and leave Eric holding every forged document. The prosecutor wanted to act immediately. Aisha asked them to wait 48 hours. We needed Melissa to believe she had won. Mom invited the family to a second Thanksgiving dinner in December. She told Melissa she could not bear for the family's final memory to be the ruined holiday. She said she wanted to apologize for raising children who had turned against one another. Melissa accepted. She enjoyed apologies, especially when they belonged to other people. We set the table exactly as it had been before. Same candles. Same glasses. Mom even ordered another turkey. Eric arrived alone and looked sick. Natalie came with Ben. Dad wore the brown sweater Mom gave him the previous Christmas. Melissa entered 10 minutes late in a white coat. She kissed Mom's cheek. I'm glad we can finally put this ugliness behind us. I sat in the same chair as before. My phone rested beside my plate. Melissa noticed it. Mom carried in the turkey. Then Natalie stood and picked up my phone, just as she had on Thanksgiving. For the first time, Melissa's smile weakened. Natalie read a message aloud. Claire, the transfer is complete. The Bennett home is protected. The fraudulent debt has been frozen, and law enforcement has the storage unit records. Silence filled the room. Melissa looked at Eric. He would not meet her eyes. I spoke calmly. The first message was yours. This one is mine. She stood. I have no idea what you are talking about. You bought the phone at a convenience store on November 26th. The camera recorded you. The receipt was paid by Hartwell Living. That proves nothing. Marissa Lawson is cooperating. Color left her face. I continued. The bank traced the loan application to your office. Investigators recovered the laptop from Toledo. They know about the invoices, the forged deeds, and the Costa Rica ticket. Melissa looked toward the front door. Red and blue lights flashed through the curtains. She turned to Eric. What did you do? He finally looked at her. What you plan to do to me? The police knocked. Melissa did not scream. She did not cry. She looked at me with pure hatred. You think this makes you better than me? No, I said. It makes my parents safe from you. Officers entered and arrested her on fraud, forgery, identity theft, and conspiracy charges. Eric was arrested the next morning after giving a formal statement. The second turkey went cold too. But nobody cared. Partif v. Ido hajeostits kiost. People love the moment when the villain is arrested. Stories usually end there because what follows is slower and less beautiful. There were hearings, interviews, bank meetings, and nights when Mom cried until her voice disappeared. Dad blamed himself for trusting his son. Natalie filed for divorce after learning Ben had hidden other debts. Ben was not charged. He had made a reckless investment. But investigators found no evidence that he knew about the fraud. Natalie told him that legality was not the same as loyalty. She was right. The bank admitted failures in its approval process. It canceled the fraudulent home, equity debt, and paid my parents' legal expenses. Their home was released from every false claim. The lake house had never been in danger, but Mom sold it anyway. At first, I begged her not to. Grandma wanted us to keep it, I said. Mom looked out the kitchen window. Your grandmother wanted it to bring us together. Now it only reminds me of what almost happened. She sold the cabin to a young family with 3 daughters. She used part of the money to repair the house and placed the rest in a protected account that neither Eric nor any other child could access. I helped set it up. This time, Dad read every page before signing. Hartwell Living entered bankruptcy. Some clients recovered part of their deposits through insurance and the sale of company assets. Others lost money they would never see again. That truth mattered to me. My family had survived, but survival did not erase the damage done to strangers. Eric pleaded guilty to conspiracy, bank fraud, and identity theft. He received 4 years in federal prison and was ordered to pay restitution. Melissa went to trial. Her attorney described her as a hardworking businesswoman manipulated by a desperate husband. Then prosecutors played her recorded threat to Marissa. They showed the store video. They presented the false invoices from her laptop and the ticket she bought under her maiden name. Finally, I testified. Melissa watched me from across the courtroom. The prosecutor asked me to describe Thanksgiving night. I told the jury about Natalie reading the message. I told them how my mother looked at me as if she no longer knew me. I described Eric blocking the door and Melissa smiling behind her wineglass. The defense attorney asked whether I hated Melissa. For a while, I said. And you wanted revenge. I wanted the truth. That was not my question. I looked at Melissa. Yes, I wanted revenge. But revenge without evidence is only another kind of lie. So I followed the evidence. The jury found her guilty on every major count. She received 11 years. Outside the courthouse, reporters asked whether I felt satisfied. I said no. Satisfaction would have meant getting my old family back. It would have meant Mom trusting all her children. It would have meant Dad never learning that his son had traded his signature for a failing business. Justice did not restore those things. It only stopped the theft from continuing. For a long time, I thought that was not enough. Then spring came. Dad repaired the porch steps with help from a neighbor. Mom planted tomatoes behind the garage. Natalie moved into a small apartment and started over. She and I began speaking every night, not because we were afraid, but because we remembered how easily silence had separated us. One Sunday, Mom asked me to come home for dinner. There were only 4 of us at the table. Mom, Dad, Natalie, and me. The empty chairs hurt, but they also told the truth. Halfway through dinner, Dad set down his fork. I owe you an apology, he said. You already apologized. Not properly. He looked older than he had before Thanksgiving. When that message appeared, I believed the worst thing about you because I was afraid. I should have known your character. I reached across the table and took his hand. Eric made sure the lie arrived when everyone was emotional. That explains me, Dad said. It does not excuse me. Mom began crying. Natalie did too. I had imagined that apology many times. In some versions, I delivered a powerful speech. In others, I let them suffer before forgiving them. But real pain had exhausted my appetite for performance. I forgive you, I said. The words did not erase the past. They opened a door through it. Later, Dad and I sat on the repaired porch. The evening air smelled like cut grass. Children rode bicycles on the sidewalk. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked at nothing. Dad asked whether I would ever speak to Eric again. I considered the question carefully. Eric had written me 3 letters from prison. The first blamed Melissa. The second blamed the company. The third contained no blame at all. In that final letter, he admitted that the first stolen dollar had been his decision. Everything afterward had been an attempt to avoid facing it. I had not answered. Maybe someday, I told Dad. But forgiveness does not require access. Dad nodded. That summer, I visited Eric. He entered the prison visiting room wearing a tan uniform. His hair was shorter, and the easy charm had disappeared. We sat across from each other at a metal table. "Thank you for coming," he said. I almost didn't. I know. He apologized without explaining. That mattered. Then he asked the question he had probably practiced. "Will you ever forgive me?" "I am trying." His eyes filled with tears. "Does that mean we can be a family again?" "It means I will not carry hatred for you. It does not mean I will pretend you are safe before you become safe." He lowered his head. "That is fair. Fair has nothing to do with it. It is necessary." We spoke for 20 minutes. When the guard ended the visit, Eric stood and placed his hand against the glass divider near the exit. For a moment, I saw the brother who once carried me home. Then he walked away to serve the sentence he had earned. The next Thanksgiving, Mom invited fewer people. There was no football game. Dad had grown tired of pretending to watch it. Natalie brought apple pie. I made the stuffing and nearly ruined it. Before dinner, Mom asked everyone to leave their phones in a basket near the front door. We laughed, even though the memory beneath the joke was painful. At the table, Dad said grace. He thanked God for the food, the house, and the people willing to tell the truth, even when it cost them something. After dinner, I stepped outside alone. The repaired porch felt solid beneath my feet. Through the window, I could see Mom and Natalie clearing plates while Dad stole a piece of pie. For most of my life, I believed revenge meant making the person who hurt you feel the same pain. I was wrong. The best revenge was not Melissa in prison or Eric losing his company. It was my parents keeping their home. It was Natalie finding the courage to begin again. It was me standing on a porch that had almost been stolen, no longer begging liars to admit what I already knew. That Thanksgiving message was designed to turn my family against me. Instead, it taught me the truth I will carry for the rest of my life. A lie can empty every chair at your table, but the truth decides who deserves to be invited back. THEEND